Welcome, Focus Learners, to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating shift in how we share our human experiences. Traditional storytelling hasn't disappeared at all. It's just migrated into these wildly dynamic, interactive spaces. So let's map out the architecture of that evolution together.
Okay, let's dive into this. There's actually a pretty common misconception out there that the rapid advancement of the digital age is somehow destroying traditional narrative art. But the reality? It's much more fascinating. As the quote says, storytelling hasn't lost its voice, it has simply found a new architecture to echo through. Our human impulse to share stories is just as strong today as it was when we were gathered around ancient campfires. It's just the architecture that's shifted.
To truly grasp this shift, we really need to look at what's called the digital echo. By definition, this is the phenomenon where traditional narrative structures transition, adapt, and reverberate through modern digital mediums. I want you to notice that word, reverberate. When you shout into a canyon, the echo isn't just some perfect sterile recording of your voice, right? The sound distorts, it amplifies, it literally changes based on the exact shape of the rocks it's bouncing off of. And in that same way, as our stories bounce through the digital canyon, the medium itself reshapes the message.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start by defining narrative art, then cover the digital shift, move into interactive storytelling mediums, explore algorithms shaping the story, and finally, we'll look at the future of the echo.
All right, step 1, defining narrative art. Let's look at how things were before the digital age.
For millennia, narratives were strictly bound to physical origins. Think of oil paintings hanging in a grand museum, or those beautifully bound printed books sitting on a library shelf. Because they were physical, they were static moments, permanently captured in time. They inherently relied on a linear style of storytelling. And critically, this is key. In this traditional model, there was an impenetrable boundary between the creator and the observer. The author speaks, the painter paints, and you're required to just be a passive recipient of that fixed, unchangeable physical narrative.
Let's move to and see how this builds in step 2, the digital shift. Decades of momentum.
This historical momentum has unfolded incredibly fast. We're talking over just a few decades. Back in the 1990s, we saw the first digital canvas. The internet arrived, but it acted mostly like digital paper, just static text and images on a glowing screen. Then, the 2000s brought social media storytelling, where narratives suddenly became fragmented and highly communal. By the 2010s, we stepped right into virtual reality environments. This began to completely strip away the physical frame or the rigid edges of the screen, essentially pulling us inside the story. And now, here in the 2020s, we've accelerated straight into the era of generative algorithms, where the digital environment itself is actually writing the code and acting as a co-author. It's this rapid acceleration that makes the digital echo feel so incredibly complex today.
That brings us to step 3, interactive storytelling mediums, active participation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast we're talking about. It's a sharp divide. With traditional passive consumption, you are strictly an observer taking in exactly what is given to you. But with active participation in digital art, that strict boundary between the creator and the observer is just completely gone. You aren't just absorbing the art anymore, you're actively shaping it. You become a fundamental variable in how the story is actually executed.
We can break down this interactivity into 3 pretty elegant steps. Step 1, the viewer enters the digital environment. So you open an app, you start a game, or you log into a platform. Step 2, the viewer makes a narrative choice. Now, this doesn't just mean choosing a dialogue option in a game. It could literally be a click, a swipe, or even just how many seconds you happen to linger on a specific post. Step 3, the digital echo adapts the story in real time. The media responds directly to your most subtle interactions, fundamentally altering how the narrative unfolds specifically for you, right in that exact moment.
Moving on to step 4, algorithms shaping the story. Code as co-author.
Now, what's really interesting about this data is the sheer, undeniable scale of this behavioral shift. It's absolutely staggering. A massive 60% of our narrative consumption now happens through algorithmic and interactive feeds. Meanwhile, traditional digital media sits at about 25%. And static or physical media, the books and paintings that defined human history for thousands of years, is down to just 15%. To put that into perspective, Code is now actively managing the vast majority of the narratives we consume every single day.
Which leads us to a pretty profound realization. The algorithm doesn't just deliver the story, it learns what echoes best with your unique psychology. Think about the traditional model for a second. A creator painted a canvas and just sort of hoped their story resonated with an audience. Today, the algorithm dynamically reconstructs the echo until it perfectly matches your individual behavioral profile. It literally tailors the narrative architecture to your specific interests, your fears, and your desires, all to keep you endlessly engaged.
And finally, step 5, future of the echo, ultimate implications. So, the crucial point is captured in this one lingering question. What happens to the human soul of a story when the echo becomes louder than the original voice? If algorithms are continuously reshaping the narrative simply to fit our exact psychological preferences and maximize our engagement, are we still experiencing the challenging, transformative power of art? Or are we just staring into a hyper-personalized digital mirror? Take that thought with you the next time you step into a digital environment. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.